Good evening, everyone. I'm Sabrina Silva. I'm the HPCC, the Highland Park Community Council Vice President, and we are hosting the HPCDC, which is the Highland Park Community Development Corporation. I think I got those acronyms correct. And who are going to be talking about the building project at 936 Mellon Street. And we know we have David Hance, and I see Kelly Mead, who I also believe is from the CDC. And I don't know if there's anyone else from the CDC board who's here, but I will, the agenda for this evening is to get we'll have the CDC members introduce themselves and give some background on this project and then explain, what's going to be happening moving forward. And this is an opportunity for members of the community to not only get caught up in this latest and one of the final projects of the CDC in terms of development that's currently planned, but also to provide any relevant feedback or ask questions about this particular project. So with that, I will pass it off to David Hance and whoever else from the CDC is here.
Thank you, Sabrina. So this is David Hance here, president of the Highland Park Community Development Corporation, longtime involvement on Mellon Street. I'm joined this evening, as Sabrina pointed out, Kelly Mead, one of our board members, and Fran Escalante is also a current board member. Past board members, I see Bob Starsinik was a past board member, and Margot Cavalier is on the Zoom tonight as well. So all of us have long involvement on Mellon Street, and it's great to it's great to be able to talk about really our last project on the street, and it's important to understand kind of the context that it sits in. And I've promised Sabrina I won't do a history of the CDC tonight, but it is important to understand this project in its context. So we'll do that as soon as we've got a screen to share.
While we're waiting for that, would the other current board members care to introduce themselves? I don't have screen sharing ability right now, so.
My name's Fran Escalante, and I've been on the HPCDC board since 2003.
Kelly is muted.
Kelly, you're muted.
Got it. Sorry about that. I've been a Highland Park resident for roughly 45 years. I've been on the board for, I don't know, 5-7 years with these guys.
One of my slides up front is just kind of what is an HPCDC, and I think most people on here have probably heard this before or know this, but the HPCDC is the small quote bricks and mortar nonprofit in the neighborhood. The community council is the large membership organization. That's where vision and direction and priorities are set in the neighborhood, in the larger membership, and especially for those of us who have been around since the beginning of the CDC. That was a very different time, and that was a time with lots of absentee landlord problems. The area, Mellon, was kind of really a very unfortunate situation of blight, absentee landlords, poorly run properties, 911 calls, gunfire, drug dealing. To see it today and the transformation that has happened on the street is really quite remarkable. And I think it's, we were the ones who jumped in before, after having sort of community discussions about, gee, what's wrong with that corner of the neighborhood. A small group of us started the HPCDC and jumped in with some of the projects that I'll just review briefly here as we move on towards the 936 building. But know, it's, I see some neighbors on Mellon Street are here, Bob certainly, and some new names. So, you know, hopefully we'll.
David, you're a co-host now. You can share your screen whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. So can you, have I done that right? Can you see me, or am I still, can you see my presentation yet?
No,
Okay, so I need to
you need to click again on the,
let me go to the right place here and click again. So share screen. I don't have a live share screen button. Where am I
on
going?
the bottom.
Okay, is that coming up?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good. And I'll go to, so you, so are you seeing full screen there? Or are you seeing all my windows and everything?
Then they see us.
We are seeing we are seeing the edit view, not the presentation mode.
There we
Right,
go.
not
There we
full
go.
screen.
Okay, that should be good, right?
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right. This is as the building sits today. We're heading towards a zoning Board of Adjustment hearing for a variance that we'll talk about here in just a few minutes. This is what I just kind of outlined, what's an HPCDC, and we actually formed early in 1993 to start to address that renewal and redevelopment in an area of kind of remarkable, unfortunate blight and conditions that really no neighbor should be having to put up with. Our mission is now somewhat expanded, and and I talked about, so vision set at the HPCC, bricks and mortar is implemented at the HPCDC. We were started before the community plan of 2004, but this document is still, I mean, it's still the one public community plan for Highland Park, and the priorities and the direction set in there really largely still determine kind of neighborhood priorities. Through this process, excuse me, the neighborhood, I don't know, maybe unfortunately has the area of Mellon Street, the 800, 900 blocks of Mellon Street and kind of surrounding blocks. We've kind of been toiling in our small group over here for many years, but out of the 2004 community plan, really the neighborhood priority was also very much on Bryant Street, and we've then moved into Bryant Street and have done several projects over there that we can, if there's time tonight at the end, we can talk about maybe what we're doing on Bryant Street or the status of our projects there. We're not really talking about any new projects over there either. So the project that we're looking at tonight is our last development project. And you know, our first priority as a CDC was set up to address this, what we call the southwest quadrant of Highland Park. It's not really the full quadrant, but it's really was centered on those 800, 900 blocks of Mellon Street, and then the 700 block across Stanton with East Liberty. So this was our first project out at the corner of Stanton and Mellon, and this was an abandoned, condemned building, large mansion. It was the James Scott mansion. He was Carnegie's blast furnace guru. Large, very large, 6,000 square foot mansion with a very large carriage house behind. We took this on as our first project. At one point in 1996, it opened, and it was a $1.4 million project. Kind of a crazy project for a CDC to start with, but this was a very visible corner and really a kind of a signpost for, you know, the unfortunate status of parts of Highland Park that we really felt strongly that we needed to address. It is now providing 8 apartments in the main house and 3 apartments in the carriage house. Those are all affordable apartments. That's a very rare commodity in the East End in general. And I believe that we're providing the only truly affordable units in Highland Park for all of our neighbors. You know, it's always been important for the CDC to provide affordable rental, market rate rental. You know, we tackle blight with the tools that are available to us. And wanting to preserve the diversity and the income mix that makes Highland Park an interesting and really great neighborhood was central to this project. So 11 apartments here, all at 60% median income affordability. Jumping in time a little bit and space, we're jumping over to Negley. This is the corner of Avondale before on the left, and Avondale, it's 923 North Negley, so it's the corner of Negley and Avondale. Really 8 units, believe it or not, in that house on the left at the time, although most of them were uninhabitable by the time we took it over. We then turned that project into the the very fitting property on Negley that's shown on the right, and that's a 3-unit condominium building too, interestingly enough. Jumping back over to Mellon Street, the 800 block of Mellon Street, we've got a before and after of 807 Mellon Street up at the top. We've got the after for, I think it's 813, 815, 817 Mellon Street in the middle, the turreted houses. These were all in pretty rough shape, as you might imagine, just kind of looking at before of 807. And then we also, soon after, we acquired the Sutherland building, which is the apartment building at the corner of Mellon and Jackson. That building was the site of something like 119 911 calls in a 2.5-year period. It was ground zero for drug dealing and gunfire on Mellon Street. Really a scourge to the neighbors there. On the kind of the middle right is a project. We don't necessarily want to do all of the acquired projects that we take on, or all the properties that we acquire. And that house on the right is a house that we purchased and held to kind of keep it in safe hands. And then we worked with a private developer to turn that into a for sale house. Moving over to the 900 block of Mellon Street, on the left is the former Sandy's Deli. Also really a nuisance on the street for most of our well, for decades really on Mellon Street. They sold beer out the front door, so cars would pull up and the doors would open and people would go in and buy beer and come back out to the car and disturb all the neighbors and really set a very bad tone for living on that block of Mellon Street. That has now been purchased by a private developer, and the bottom floor is now a unit, and they've gone through and renovated their second and third floor units as well. So this is now a contributing building on the street. The two, the red building and the gray building to the right of it is the former E&J Market and the former Mano's Deli and Market. I mean, they were kind of good citizens on the street. They just kind of phased out, I think, of kind of having a market, and those projects eventually went empty, I think, for a while, and then purchased. And with the uptick on Mellon Street in general, as our project started to solidify the block, and as other private developers started to see an opportunity, these projects have come back and are now very solid houses on the street. A little house up to the right, or up at the middle top, that's actually a building that hugs onto the side of the old Sandy's Deli building. It's a building that the CDC purchased again to kind of hold it and get it out of bad hands. And then a private developer worked with us to renovate that. More recently, the 3 module houses have appeared on the 900 block. And that's our building, of course, to the left, the Scheibler building. You know, these are I'll explain why those were vacant lots here in just a minute, but you know, those are one on the far right was done by one developer.
I can't stand it.
Well, they're occupying street. These are really the first new construction on Mellon Street in many decades. This was a block that was just not going to. The reason the land sat empty for so long is it just wasn't a marketable area to be able to build new and you know, have the right sales price. So yeah, thank you, Judy. Moving on then to our project, 936 Mellon Street. This is Frederick Scheibler's Coleman apartment.
I am muted.
From 1906. This was built as an apartment building for Mrs. Coleman. And this was by the architect, Frederick Scheibler, who really is a kind of a jewel in the architectural crown of Pittsburgh in this early 1900s and 1900s, 10s, 20s. And really a unique talent, and designed many, mostly residential buildings around, especially the East End. I'll show a couple here in a minute that you might be familiar with. This building, kind of as you might imagine, in 1906, kind of what would have like appeared to have dropped, you know, from the moon into a neighborhood of 4 square kind of colonial revival houses. But Scheibler was looking at what was going on in Europe, and in this particular building, he was heavily influenced by the Glasgow architect Charles Rennie Mackintosh. And kind of once you see the Mackintosh influences in this building, it all kind of makes sense. But they're really a unique building and an important building. So these are some examples of Scheibler's work. That upper right hand photo with the 4 red doors, those are the Parkstone dwellings. They sit back off Penn Avenue as you're kind of heading out towards Regent Square, kind of before you get to Dallas, or just before you get to Dallas, I think. Off to the left, you see this building, and many people are fooled by the Oriental rugs that are draped over the balconies. That's actually kind of one of Scheibler's touches. That's all tile. And old Heidelberg building, the Highland Towers building. In our neighborhood, there's the Clages house, and there's a house by Scheibler on Jackson Street. The book by Martin Arand is in that lower left-hand corner, Progressive Architecture of Frederick G. Scheibler. The photo to the upper left, that is a stained glass window from our building. So it was in the door that separated the kitchen from the servants' quarters, and each of the apartments had that window. So we have one such of those doors, and kind of plan to have that replicated so that each apartment has this kind of touch. And that's the kind of touch that Scheibler was really famous for. Really great little built-ins, very comfortable, very warm and kind of wood heavy apartments and houses. The photo at the lower right, that is looking up at the skylight of his Whitehall building over on East End Avenue. This happens to be exactly the same stair design and stained glass that we have in our building at the top of our stair. Our stained glass is not in great shape right now, but we kind of the replicating and doing something with this kind of bringing that stair back and bringing that skylight back is one of our goals. Okay, so what happened to create those empty spaces on Mellon Street? In the photo at the left is 1987. These are all courtesy of Bob Starsnick. Kind of at the very left, you see the rear of the Starsnick house at the corner of Wellesley and Mellon. Next to that, of course, you see our blue building. And then beyond that, you see a white 3-story apartment building that is no longer there. And then next, just even a little further past that is a white 2-story building that is no longer there. And the reason they're no longer there is because in 1990, the larger apartment building here at this upper photo was empty. It was vacant. And I think Bob tells me that and then when we were here, I remember this fire just before 4th of July in 1990. This unoccupied building went up in flames, and it was, the neighborhood spectacle of watching the firemen arrive and put this out, and then eventually remove the building. That lower photo is the empty site from that building, and then to the left was the house that was damaged in the fire, and then 2 weeks later, it too went up in flames. And that's created the building, the vacant lots that those 3 modular buildings went into. So with our project for 936, we're going to have three principles that are guiding this. One is history, and that's restore the exterior of a unique and important building. On the street, support those neighbors who have lived through the transition of Mellon Street, the transformation of Mellon Street. Support those neighbors who believe that Mellon Street could come back by replacing what is now an eyesore with a jewel. And Highland Park in general, the larger Highland Park context, is provide a single level housing option now scarce in the neighborhood for seniors and others who would like such options but find it difficult to find them available in the neighborhood. I'll just touch on 2 things that are kind of guiding or really important elements before we get into kind of the exterior of the building. But so these are original Scheibler drawings. This building, as I'm an architect, and I'm always amazed at how few sheets of drawings were necessary back then to build a building. So there are 6 sheets for this entire building. Our own project is at about 32 sheets right now, to kind of give you an idea of how projects have changed and complexity of systems and everything else. But so we're looking at the roof plan, not really focusing on that at the moment, but looking at the right-hand drawing. This is the section through those very unique front porches. And those front porches really are special and are worthy of going the extra mile to replicate them and save them as artifacts. I mean, and not as artifacts, but as kind of living and breathing pieces of the building. We have looked at them many times with engineers and contractors, and have come to the realization that we're actually going to have to replace them in kind. So it's really replicate them to match the original Scheibler design. An approach that very few developers would do. But, the HPCDC was the sponsor of making the Highland Park neighborhood a National Historic Register district. And, the history of the neighborhood is incredibly important to all of us. And we are committed to going this extra mile to, at no small expense, replicate these front porches. And they're really central to the whole, I'll show in the plan, but to how you live and enjoy these spaces too. Taking a look at another sheet from Scheibler's drawings, the drawing on the left is the first floor plan. It only differs from the one on the right because on the first floor you come up the steps and you've got a kind of a large terrace out front. You come in the front door, there's a corridor that takes you back to that stair. You're standing here and looking straight up, you're seeing that stained glass that I had a photo of. And then in each apartment, then the plan is very similar from there, which is that you You come off the stair into quite a large foyer reception room, he called it. And to the left is the parlor in the front of the building. The parlor or living room, if you will. And then to the left were 2 bedrooms and a single bath going back into a dining area, which was separated from the kitchen because at this point is the door that separated the kitchen and the servants' room from the front, quote, front of the house. So, you know, the apartment dwellers were in the front, and then they, in 1906, they had kind of a back of house, you know, a kitchen that wasn't, as we do kitchens today, wasn't open to the dining area. So it was a private back of house kitchen and a small servant's bedroom. You see the rounded bay that each of the apartments has. Also going to point out the stair, this notch stair. This is a stair that is, it's steel, it's rusted, it's non-code compliant. We are going to, well, we're required, we really need to repair or replace that stair with a different second means of egress that will be available in brand new construction. And that's, so you just see in the right-hand plan that the parlor is larger because it doesn't have that corridor, but everything else about the plan is the same. Here is our current plan, proposed plan. So again, we flop the drawings. So Mellon Street's to the left, CoStar Way, the alley is to the right. Large open central stair coming into reception area. We're doing a kind of a 2-bedroom suite plan here. It's a pretty large apartment. It's somewhere in the 1,700 plus square footage range. But the primary bedroom then would be accessible via private door off this arrival foyer. Bedroom to the left, doors out to those marvelous balconies, walk-in closet and bathroom to the right. There's a laundry room kind of centrally located for kind of off the reception area. Large living room also with doors opening onto that large deck, balconies out front. We're proposing, we're doing a central kitchen with a small eat-in dining space, and then stepping back into another bedroom suite. So a smaller bedroom suite at the rear of the building, bedroom number 2, also with an adjacent bathroom and closet. And then we're opening up windows out to the alley to the east. And what you see here is that the stair that previously notched into the plan and really kind of made this wing much more difficult to use has been taken away, and it's been captured with new enclosed space. And there is the new code compliant fire stair. And we are very much interested in doing an elevator to service this building so that, again, kind of going back to that senior market and others kind of with, you know, who really would like to have a single floor living available in Highland Park, allow them to stay in the neighborhood, but be able to, you know, kind of also make their kind of much better meet their accessibility needs. So the variance we're looking for, and we will be up for the zoning board of adjustment here in a couple of weeks, has to do with expansion of a non-conforming use by more than 15% in a residential zoning district. And I'll explain what that all means, what non-conforming use is. Non-conforming use is buildings prior to the current 1958 building zoning code are subject to certain setbacks and other sorts of zoning requirements. And I'll talk about how this building is non-code compliant, but because it's quote grandfathered in, it's certainly permitted on its own. We're proposing to expand it by more than that 15%. I think our numbers are about 22%. Just a note that the kind of this public meeting and the public zoning hearing that we will be attending are kind of, for lack of a better term, sort of garden variety variance requests. The Community Council is what's known as the RCO, the Registered Community Organization for the neighborhood. If the project met any one of these 13 standards, then it would be subject to a design assistance meeting. And that would be like what the zoo, with the zoo's project with their entry plaza proposals, they were required to go through the design assistance meeting process. But our building is not, doesn't meet the size requirements. It's not adding new residential dwelling units. It's not adding excess parking stalls. It's not subject to a use variance. We're asking for a different kind of variance, but the use is residential and will remain residential. So we're not asking for a use variance, nor are we asking for zoning map amendments or project development plans or any of these other kinds of things that larger, kind of much more impactful projects in a neighborhood are subject to. So I just want to make sure that we understand that and that we welcome the meeting that we're having right now and all the community input. We're doing it for so that the community is fully informed of what's going on with this building that's been sitting vacant for so long. This is the existing site plan. So the shaded is the current building footprint. There's that notched for the stair because that's exterior. Here is our proposed building footprint. Off kind of beginning at the top, this is a 3-car garage, single-story garage, accessed off of CoStar Way. From there, you'd be able to walk from your car into a small lobby that would connect into the fire stair and then also to the elevator.
So for my clarification, it will be condemned and uninhabitable until up to standard, correct?
That's correct. That's correct. Yeah. So the blue
Thank
sign
you.
on the door must remain until we brought it up to standards. The
Thank you.
neighbors next door at the module, there's one module house right next door that is unsold at this point, and we're in frequent contact with that developer. The unknown about our building is weighing heavily on their ability to market their project. I think we and they think that once we're underway on construction in our building, that will start to kind of reset confidence and show people that our building is heading in a good direction, and that that unit then can perhaps hopefully be sold. So the reason that we're non-conforming. Okay, so non-conforming pretty much has to do with setbacks. And this building, our building, is non-conforming because in 1906 it was built on the property lines at both the south side, that's to the right side, and to the north side, side that faces into the Starsonic backyard and the rental next to that. So we're non-conforming, non-compliant at the north and the south. We're also non-conforming at the west. We face Mellon Street because the balconies exceed a current setback that most of the other buildings on this side live up to. And then we would be non-compliant at the rear also because we're coming out to the property line with our garage there. Got some photos here of what CoStar Way looks like, and I'll have some other photos here as we go through. But basically, there's a lot Mellon Street and CoStar Way are widely non-conforming. As you come in from either side of CoStar Way, you're bracketed by two buildings that sit on the property line. So those are existing non-conforming. At the Jackson end, same story. So you got two buildings that are existing non-conforming. The entire west face of Mellon Street itself on the 900 block is existing non-conforming. All those buildings are not setting back. And it was
David, can you go back to that last slide? Because I think it illustrates some of the areas that we had concerns about. And I want to make sure we have time to talk about some of the things that came up when we did the walkthrough on the site.
Sure.
So you talked about the historic integrity of the building. One of the lovely features is that bay window in the notch of the L. It's sort of right in the center of the diagram right now. That currently looks out into the back patio and provides sort of all the light and the view from essentially the middle of the apartment building. And one of our concerns is that by putting in that elevator that serves 2 units and the stairs where you put them, you are now essentially really destroying the view and the functionality of that courtyard, and also sort of imposing on the 2 neighbors on the left border in this picture. And so again, just want to know, since we've talked, like your thoughts about that, if you have actually talked to the owners of those properties and what it does to the property value. I know these are pretty high dollar units, the fact that you're sort of destroying their view out this, like what should be a really pretty window.
And I've got some slides to talk to some of those items, those questions, Stephanie. So that's kind of the issue of non-conforming. And so we're going to walk around the building elevations, and this, I think, we'll touch on some of the issues that Stephanie's raising. So the Mellon Street elevation is really, we're approaching that as a replication of the important front porches. So that's the elevation view to the right. To the left is when we cut through the porches and we're looking at the windows and the doors that open onto that balcony, or those 3 balconies and terraces. Those openings have been kind of lost over time. Some of them filled in really, but with the new plan, large windows facing Mellon Street, and then with French doors that open onto the balconies from each apartment. South elevation, no change, except for that there's that single-story garage that's being shown here. That's added on. That aligns with the face of this building. The folks at Module, the developer next door, are very happy to see us proceeding with the project. We move around to CoStar Way, so these are the. On the left is the elevation that you would see from CoStar Way, with a single door garage. It just has to do with how the interior layout works. A single door garage, and then a double door, larger garage. So unlike some of the garages, well, the garages that sit right next to us at Module, those buildings kind of tip up. They present they slope to the rear, to back into their yard, so they present a tall face to the alley. We're doing just the opposite. We've got a low kind of a low garage face facing the alley. This is the existing end of the building with the new windows that we're adding. That is the 3-story stair that we're adding, and you can see the dotted stair landings inside. Actually, Stephanie just said that the elevator serves 2 units. It actually serves 3 because we're about a half a floor down from the first floor back at this portion of the site. So when you pull into the garage, every apartment or condo dweller would access their apartments via elevator. What if we were to cut through, kind of cut the section behind the stair, then this is the quarter round bay that Stephanie was just referring to. The entire building is having stucco repaired, and kind of redoing the stucco, all new windows throughout. This is CoStar Way. So beginning in upper left, this, if you can follow my cursor, the low concrete wall here with the fence on top, that is our yard. Here's the neighbor's garage just to our left. We're looking out towards Wellesley and kind of come around clockwise. Kind of a same view, a little bit different, slightly different angle, kind of a 3/4 view. Our yard sits up about 2.5 feet, and then we come around. So we're now in the lower right-hand corner. That taller wall is the neighbor's yard out on Wellesley. They sit about 3.5 feet higher than our yard. And then their first floor is another 2 feet up. So their first floor is about 5.5 feet above our yard. Our garage would stretch pretty much the face of this low retaining wall here. And then there'd be a small egress access way path that takes us up into our courtyard. And then lower left is building as it sits right now. And we're looking at the end of the building. So
Hi, David, before you continue, I just want to give a 1-minute warning. We do want to leave about 20 minutes at the end for folks to ask questions. We're at 7:39 at this point. So I just want to give you a 1-minute warning for that.
Okay, thank you. We are just about
I know you're
done
getting
with
close
the-
to the end, but if there's any last thing to show, and then of course, as people ask questions, if there's anything relevant, we can.
Sure,
check that.
just about done with elevations here, then we'll move into let's decide what we want to jump to next. But this is our north face. So most of this is existing. This large face, that's the solid wall that faces one of the apartment buildings, and then also the back of the Starsonic yard. Our two additions, so the stair that would be closest to our neighbor is 9 feet 8 inches wide, and it sits 40 inches back from our property line, and 3.5 feet down from their yard, about 5 feet down from their first floor. And then you go further back, and then there's the elevator. There's the elevator shaft. So the view on the left is from Mellon Street, looking at how our building kind of abuts the back of the Starsonic yard. That's the distance that we're talking about between buildings. And then upper right is the building directly adjacent to the Starsonics. That's an absentee landlord property. Really no windows on that side of the house. And then the building, the lower photo is the house next to it. Again, really no view windows in this direction. Also a rental property.
Have you talked to those property owners?
Well, they're absentee landlords. So as part of the variance process, they get individual letters sent by the city planning department. So they are properly notified, and if they show up at the zoning hearing, we're more than happy to present our case and let zoning law kind of let the zoning hearing board make their rulings. So to the nature of our small courtyard, it is a small courtyard and it is north facing, but around the Mexican War streets, around Old Allegheny, around Brooklyn brownstones, these are urban courtyards. So small doesn't necessarily mean unusable, and each apartment has, like the world's nicest balcony facing west onto Mellon Street already. And this is a space that we believe is going to be used. It's not probably in use in the middle of February, but we think that this small urban courtyard can actually be a nice place, just like these small urban courtyards were.
Right, and so what are the dimensions of the proposed dimensions of the courtyard? Ours is 21 feet across, 10 feet wide, and 8 feet
Ours is 21 feet across, from building face to building face, and then it's plus that, and that's the east-west dimension. North-south dimension is similar, maybe a little large, would be a little larger.
Right, and these pictures are nice, but let's be clear, because it's north facing, nothing's gonna grow there, and there won't be like all this like sunny, nice and direct light you have in these pictures. This is gonna be a very dark light well that all these units look on, and the two other neighbors who maybe they don't have windows and they are renters, but they do have yards that currently are looking at this, at the backyard of the property. That would now be looking at a wall and this, dark little patio.
If you, okay.
If I can interrupt, this is Margot Cavalier. I live in a house where it's largely north facing, and I don't think just because there's a north facing courtyard that is a huge issue.
We think that there are many other pluses to this project that they were not. For one thing, we don't think we have a courtyard we need to apologize for to begin with, but we also think that there's just the entire lifestyle and other spaces that are available to the buyers of these condos will kind of win the day. And I'm just showing some examples here of these are, these also get a lot of shade. Concern well taken. We think that in the big balance of things that we still have a pretty strong project. So at this point, the next step is to talk about some numbers, but do we want to take any other questions about the design?
Yeah, I'd like to pause and offer up, but because we only have 15 minutes that remain in this meeting, so I think it's really important if there are other questions that those get addressed. And so if anyone has questions, if you can use the options to raise.
Would there be like a waiting list? Because my husband and I are looking for a condo to buy. And would there be a waiting list set up when they're ready?
Brian, you want to take that?
Yes, sorry, this is Fran Escalante, and I was certainly prepared to talk about anything regarding process or kind of how the development process goes.
Oh, fuck.
So the short answer to your question is absolutely. It is lovely to hear that there is a demand for the type of units
They
that
have
we're
a whole
talking about here.
thing.
And we would absolutely want to talk to you about that.
Can I make a comment about the north facing and the shade and all that stuff? I grew up like with that building across my backyard, and it's a 3-story solid wall, and even the two rental properties towards CoStar Way, there's not a whole lot of sun that gets there now, and it doesn't appear to me that those towers are going to create any more significant shade in the backs of those properties that are on Wellesley currently. So I don't see that the garages definitely would not impact the view because they're kind of low because CoStar Way drops down, and the yard is elevated a little anyway, so half of that's going to be in the garage, and I don't know that those towers are going to cause a whole lot of blockage of view. There's not really much to see back there to begin with.
Bob, I agree. I actually think that they're going to allow for more privacy when you're using that courtyard.
Yeah, it's Andrea.
Okay.
I don't think that does not sound prohibitive to me, but I am interested in a review of the numbers that you had referenced, because it seems to me that what you're talking about basically is like gutting that whole building, redoing the entire outside of the building, and God knows, roofing and electric, and I mean the whole 9 yards, which I appreciate. And it is.
We're not winning the days.
I mean, you're talking about $2+ million of renovation. And I wonder if you could talk about where that money comes from, how you determine who's gonna benefit from the use of that money and that kind of thing, and how much these things are gonna cost. I'm sure over $500,000, right? So I would like to hear your numbers comments.
Sabrina, are there any other comments about the design, the fit of this building and our design goals for the street and the neighborhood?
I guess related to Andrea's question, I would just ask about, talking about the CDC's goal of having things that are more affordable and are at lower price points, and yet adding some very expensive amenities to this particular project. Like the choice to add a commercial elevator that really serves 2 units, because you have a ground floor unit and then 2 other units, and off-street parking for every unit, which isn't required by zoning anymore. So you're driving up the price point on all of the units.
I can start to address that if you like.
One second, while we talk about the numbers, if there are further questions, please feel free to drop them into the chat. And if they don't get answered, during the planned meeting time, we can make sure they get answered, just to give people a place to put their questions, and we can transition to the numbers question.
This is Tony Yates. $600,000 seems like an awful lot of money because from what I read, you were thinking about seniors being able to move in here in this beautiful place at $600,000. That's a lot of money.
Tony, we have a lot of very wealthy seniors in this neighborhood.
Yeah, well, I'm not one of them.
I am not worried about these things selling whatsoever. I commend the CCC for taking on this project. It's a beast. I want to save the building.
I understand that, but I live in one of your buildings as well here on and there's still a lot of work that you need to do on this building as well. We got some work. We've got a new roof on our building and new appliances, but there's still some work that needs to be done. The windows are old and cracked and air's coming through, and the HPCDC owns this building that I live in, and you're not taking care of that either. So, but yet you're going to sell these for $600,000 and put all these millions of dollars into this building.
Tony, we just put several $100,000s into your building.
I know you did.
To address those
and they
things,
raised the rent as well.
Including new appliances, new air conditioning.
Yes, I know that. I live here.
New roof, new gutters,
And we needed that. We needed a new roof and gutters because there was a piece of that roof that fell down like 6 or 7 years ago, and with a big hole up there for years before you fixed it.
Can we focus on the current project? I
understand that. I'm just concerned that that's just a lot of money that you're putting into that.
We're short on time, so I just want to make sure we discuss the current project, okay?
All right.
So I can take a stab. There have been a handful of questions out on the table at the moment. I'm going to do my best to address them. First, a point of clarification: the first floor of the building is not on grade. So the elevator truly is serving all 3 units of the building and the parking spaces. So just want to be very clear about that. Secondly, I would like to say questions about, is all the housing that we develop supposed to be affordable? And the truth of the matter is we try to find a balance. We try to find the right balance that allows each thing to be developed in a way that is beneficial to the community. Some of it is formally low-income housing. Some of it is formally market rate. Some of it is for sale. Some of it is rental. Some of it is commercial. Some of it is retail. It really depends on where it is and kind of the specifics of what each building really needs in order for it to be renovated. This particular building is a very challenging, challenging situation here. If we had not bought it in 2015, our concern was that someone would come in, tear off the front, the front porches of the building, put up some incredibly inappropriate, architecturally speaking, details on the front of the building that we all would have been here opposing. We all would have raised our hand and said that we don't want, pressure treated lumber front decks on a historically significant structure like this. So, so when we come to you saying that we feel like this is the best plan, we are doing our best to make sure that on the whole, that the portfolio that we have is serving as broad a component, a broad section of the neighborhood as we can. And one of the things that in talking to the realtor community and talking to our neighbors, talking to, even in this meeting, one of the things that seemed to be a glaring omission is how to allow people who are seniors in our, who've lived in Highland Park for a long time, who have a big Victorian house and are looking to downsize, looking to be on a single floor. We saw a real opportunity to try to serve that particular market with this project. So any individual project is not going to be able to tick every single box, but we tried, and this is why I appreciated Dave giving the sort of broader history of how we've gotten here, is that we do provide affordable housing in the neighborhood. We do provide market rate housing in the neighborhood. Our goal for this one was to serve a different market that doesn't currently have much support in the neighborhood. So I just want to make sure that I'm kind of making that point clear here. And I want to make sure I look at the chat really quickly to make sure I'm hitting, the many other questions that were being asked. Bob, I want to talk about the parking on Mellon Avenue. One of the reasons that, or on Mellon Street, is that I want to make sure that we're clear that we feel pretty strongly, based on our conversations with the realtor community, that garage parking is necessary in this location. And we have the ability here to put it on an alley where most of the other neighbors also have off-street parking being serviced from that alley. We believe that if we didn't have this, if we didn't provide parking, that would be 3 more cars of people that would just be parking on the street anyway. So our argument is that we're really trying to make sure that we're taking parking from where it shouldn't be and putting it back where it should be.
We go to numbers.
Yeah, certainly we can.
Yes, please.
So the answer to that question of what the numbers look like is this is not our neighborhood. Our neighborhood basically doesn't qualify for subsidy anymore. It doesn't qualify for significant assistance when it comes to renovating buildings like this. Some of the funding tools that were available to us in our early stages are not necessarily available to us anymore. This property needs to be fully supported. This project needs to be fully supported by its sales, by its condo sales. So, so really at the end of the day, this is about it's actually about a $2.4 million project between current construction costs and the soft costs, the architectural fees, things like that. Some of those costs are sunk costs that HPCDC has already put into the project, holding the property over the last 9 years. We're prepared at this point to, any sunk costs we have in the property are going to basically be contributed to the project. But basically, even with all of that, it's true, we still need the sales to actually be in the 700,000 range. And we do know that seems like a lot, but we do feel confident that for the right product, that is viable.
Can people see the chart?
No, David, you're not sharing.
Is that break even for you?
What happened to sharing here? Sorry. You there?
Howard, to answer your question, well, you'll see this in just a second here, but yes, we would be writing off some of our initial investment in the property, or our initial holding costs, our initial real estate taxes. Although, you know, I think importantly, we would be putting this property, we would be increasing its tax benefits to the neighborhood. Yeah, I'm sorry, David, I'm still not seeing.
Yeah, I gotta go back to sharing screen here. Okay. That should be,
Could you put it in presentation mode to make it a little bit bigger as well?
okay. Is that good?
So, broadly speaking, you can see we've laid out our approximate costs. First category is our acquisition and holding costs to date, including, you'll see $185,000 in our, you know, loan interest, real estate taxes over the years since we purchased the building in 2015. The next categories are just broadly speaking our construction costs. You know, we have vetted this with our team. We have obviously an architectural team that has actually prepared these drawings. You know, this is based on, you know, our experience in the construction market. I mean, I do construction and real estate development for a living. So I can say that this is absolutely current with, you know, with my current experience with where I think the market is. We have construction of a stair, construction of an elevator, construction of a garage. The new construction components are about $321,000. The renovation costs are about $1.2 million. We have a separate line item for bringing utilities, you know, updating the utilities to the building, and we have a contingency. The next group of this is the soft costs. This is our architect, our engineer, our survey, our permit costs, and last but not least, our construction loan interest. So this is basically how we got to $2.4 million. It is unfortunately absolutely that expensive to do renovations right now. And what we're trying to show at the bottom here is basically to say the cost per unit as the project is currently drawn is $795,000 per unit. But once we basically write off our holding costs, you know, which were listed up above, that brings us down to a break even of about $733,000 per unit. Obviously, there will be some, you know, as we move forward with this process, there will be some fluctuation in that number, but we have a contingency up above that allows us to cover that. So, well, in any event, I just dropped a lot of information on you, and I just want to make sure if there are any high-level questions that I can certainly answer them for you.
Well, just that project total B down at the bottom was a test of one of the suggestions that we've heard, which is that the project is being made so expensive because of the garage and the elevator. And even if we were to omit those, you know, it still nets down to a sales price in that $656,000 range, something like that. So yes, there would be savings there, but then you balance that off against what we've done to the attractiveness of the product that we're putting out.
So I'd like to actually, I know this is not directly a question that's been asked, but I feel like it's important to talk about here. Over the 9 years that we've owned this building, and I recognize that's a very long time, we have absolutely tried to work with for-profit developers and try to identify people that could come in and do this renovation in a way that we could be proud of. As Dave mentioned, we've done that several times in this district. We've worked with you know, individual developers that presented responsible plans. And we've worked with I think at last count, Dave and I were talking earlier today, we were at up to about 8 different private developers that we had talked to try to get them interested in doing this particular project. And as you can see, none of them have, none of them were able to make it work. None of it is, has proven possible. But what I want to say is now actually is better than you would think. It is literally the best time in the 9 years that we've owned the building for actually striking on this right now. And part of it is because sales prices have been increasing so significantly in the neighborhood. We believe that this is a viable project that we are bringing to you right now. And I think it's worth emphasizing that. I think it's worth just making sure that everyone knows that we have been trying for a long time to let the private market come in and renovate the Scheibler property. Never worked out, but now we actually believe that because of the increasing, the increasing market in the neighborhood, that we can actually make this as a break-even deal. So I just wanted to make sure that I mentioned that.
Hi, I'm sorry, I put this in the chat. Do you have an estimate of what the condo association fees would be?
We have not prepared that yet. We don't know. It's typical with a condo development that as part of your preparation of the condo docs that you have to do that estimate, and we will, but I wouldn't feel comfortable that I could give you an accurate sense of that just yet.
Okay, we're like over time, but there's some questions in the chat. Sabrina asked, when do you think do you have like an estimate for completion date that you're thinking about?
So obviously, process-wise, after the zoning hearing, you apply for building permits. Simultaneously with that, we're putting together our construction financing, basically moving all of these pieces inch by inch forward at the same time. The permitting process with the city is always a little bit of a crapshoot. I've had projects that have taken, 9 months to get full approval from the city. I have had projects that have taken 6 months. Unfortunately, it really just depends on factors that are beyond our control. If I were being wish listy, I would say late third quarter, we could be under construction. But if I'm being more realistic, I'm saying that it's probably early next year.
And then how long do you think it'll take to build?
Actually, Dave, I'm going to ask for your thoughts on that.
It's probably, I estimate 9 to 12 months.
So 15?
Yeah.
That's what you've been dealing with contractors recently, Howard?
What's that? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I haven't. That's the problem. So there's a number of comments, pro and con. But Sabrina, I'm sorry to jump in. But let's if there are any specific questions that people would like to ask, and then our plan, just to let everybody know, is to post this video and on our community council website, because there are a few people that weren't able to attend tonight. But let's call for any final questions or comments.
Well, maybe Bob, we've been in contact with Bob throughout this entire project. Bob's been in and out of the building with us many times. So he's been a great conduit with the neighbors. It's certainly our understanding and hopefully our expectation that we've got neighborhood support for this project. It's an important project and it's a good project. And I think that it's one that has been, an eyesore to the neighbors far too long, and we'd love to be able to get it going.
Yeah,
So-
everybody that I've talked to around Mellon, Wellesley, Little on North St. Clair, all seem to be in favor of the project, and everybody's excited to see work being done on the building.
Stephanie, Sabrina, are you okay if we, anything else? Otherwise, I think we should close because we want to give people their evenings.
Yeah. I appreciate everybody's time. Thank you to the CDC for coming and presenting the plans and fielding questions and concerns. I will note that there was a question from a current CDC tenant that raised some concerns, and I think there's interest overall in having the CDC be able to share more fully its role in the neighborhood and its future. As it was mentioned, this is the last development project that the CDC will be undertaking. And so I think there's a natural question, which runs in tandem with things that the HPCC is currently thinking about, which is what does the next 20 years look like in Highland Park? And what's the role of the HPCC and the HPCDC in those next 20 years? So I think these are all big questions that we'll be revisiting. And I imagine that there will be an opportunity again for a meeting that's more focused on overall CDC history and plans moving forward. But I appreciate everybody's time. If anyone does have lingering questions or wants to pass anything on and doesn't have contact information, you can always email hpccpgh@gmail.com and we can connect you to David and Kelly and Fran. With that, I will close us for the evening.
And just, yeah, Sabrina, thank you. I mean, you and I have discussed, this next tier, next level discussions about kind of what's next after getting out of active development with the projects that we have and all those good questions. So that's a great topic for future meeting between the two organizations.
Absolutely.